book called Born a Crime, Stories from a South African Childhood by Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah is a very funny comedian from that lives in America right now, but he's originally from South Africa. And as the cover says, he was born a crime. Rebecca can tell us more about that.
So, at that time, basically his dad was white and his mom was black, and at that time, they weren't allowed to have a child or marry and stuff, so he was basically born a crime.
Yeah, so this book actually has some inappropriate references and a surplus of swear words, so I'd say this book is for 6th grade and up, maybe even older. But if you really want to read this book, since it's really funny, and I really recommend it, there is a kid-friendly version that younger kids can read. And it talks about a lot of stuff. And so there was one funny story that really stood out to me, and it was about him pooping. But it wasn't any poop. His mom and grandma went outside to go shopping, and it was raining. And he was alone with his great-grandma, who is blind and partially deaf. But he really needed to go poop. And he didn't want to go outside into the rain and go to the bathroom, since it was like a 5-10 minute walk. And he didn't want to get soaked. And then after that, have to poo in a stinky, fly-infested, dirty porta potty. So he decided to poo on the ground at his home on top of a piece of paper. And this is not something you should try at home. So he went poo on the floor, and his grandma was like, heard something and smelled something. And he was like, Trevor, is that you? Are you there? So he quickly picked up the poo, wrapped it up in the paper, and threw it in the trash can, and ran upstairs, and went to bed. And when his mom and grandma came home, his great-grandma told them all about what had happened, and how she had heard and smelled the devil in the house. So then they looked around and they asked Trevor if he had seen or heard anything. And he said, no, I was asleep. Because he thought it would be too embarrassing to admit he had pooed in his home. So then they looked around even more, and they found poo in the trash can. And they thought, oh, the devil really did visit our home. So then they gathered the rest of the neighborhood and had them do prayers and pray to God to try to get the devil out of their home. And they also had Trevor pray, because they thought that, because he's partially white, he's colored, and they thought that God listened more to white people in English, and he spoke English. And he felt really bad about this afterwards, and he prayed to God to forgive him and stuff. This story is funny, but also sad, because during this time, even the black people believed, the African people, natives, believed that, in some areas, they believed that white people were superior. So that's very sad. Racism is so deeply embedded in that place's culture. It's like really sad. But the way Trevor, Mr. Noah writes it, it makes it very funny. Another funny but sad aspect about racism is, since in South Africa, which is a country, there were very little Japanese and Chinese people. So they didn't really have to, and they sorted everybody. So for some reason, they decided Japanese are white and Chinese are black. Because the Japanese had more money. and at that time China was on the poor side. So if there was so when a person that looked like Chinese or Japanese, because they both look sort of similar, were sitting on a bench there at the time that was only for white people, a police might run up to them and say, "Hey, what are you doing there? That bench is for whites." And then the Japanese or Chinese person might say, or could be lying and say, "I'm Japanese." And then the police would go, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and apologize. And that would be really funny. It's also really sad too, because they had to resort to some illegal activities to survive. Rebecca, can you tell us about that?
Well, they did have like one really mean stepdad. He kind of he got drunk a lot, and when he channeled his anger, he often did it on other people. Because one time, Trevor Noah was a kid started throwing berries at him, I think, and he told it to his stepdad and kind of channeled his anger out on that kid, and that wasn't good.
And the dad, the kid's dad, I think he beat up the dad.
He threatened to.
Mm-hmm. And also, Trevor Noah, like I said, I was saying before, Rebecca kind of sidetracked onto that story. They had to actually associate with some drug dealers, which was really bad, and they had to survive and make money. And back to the stepdad. I was going to say that after this, but back to the stepdad. He actually was very abusive, and he hurt the mom and Mr. Noah a lot, Trevor Noah a lot. So that was kind of sad, and but there were a lot of funny and interesting other stories too. And like I said, I recommend this book to 6th graders and up, and if you really want to, you could read a kid-appropriate version of this. They have a kid-appropriate version. And, yeah, thank you for listening. Happy reading!